Sally, how are you, lovely?
I am excellent, thank you.
That is so good. What have you been up to this fine Friday morning and afternoon?
Yeah, I've had a really slow morning, just soaking in some sunshine and chatting with some friends. Beautiful, slow Friday.
Sounds amazing. And is it super sunny where you are, like I am here in Melbourne?
Yes, the Sunshine Coast is living up to its name and we have sunshine.
That is so good. And you're right near the beach too.
Yeah, I can see the beach from here right now.
I'm extremely jealous.
Yeah, it's very, very nice.
Soaking that up. I met you back at Wild Success last year in Byron Bay. We spoke on stage together. We
We
shared a
did.
conversation about masculine and feminine energy, and it was really interesting because the organizer Lizzie was kind of like, "Hey, you're speaking with Sally, and yeah, you're talking about this," and I'm like, "Oh, that's something I don't really talk about." And I don't know who this person is. We're like, let's jump on a call. And then we jumped on a call, and that was an hour call. And we were just like, I just loved your energy. And it was like, yeah, I'm going to like speaking with Sally. And then we got to the event, and it was like, we're both like, oh, we're a little bit nervous. And then I was like, how are we going to do this? What are we going to say? And you're like, I'm just going to flow, Carlo. That's what feminine is. And I'm like, okay, I got a lot to learn. So this is going to be a great conversation. And we smashed it. I've recorded it. If anyone wants to see that, let me know. It should be on YouTube somewhere. But it was amazing to meet you. We got to connect there, and then we haven't seen each other since. We've almost kind of crossed over in Bali and Melbourne. But we have technology, and now we're here. And I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for some time. And what better time and moment than the now? So excited to have you on here and to share all the things that you do and who you are. For the audience that don't know much about you, can you give us a wrap up of your life from start to where you are now? Because right now you do quite a few things. You're a women's empowerment coach and mentor, and you delve into, embodied power, pleasure, passion, and purpose, all those amazing things. But give us a wrap up of from start to where you are now.
Okay, so this could be a long story, but let's make it short. I feel like I've lived a really exciting life, and I've had lots of experiences that have really shaped me, positive and negative and everything in between. But the one thing that really stands out for me is when I was 16 or 17 and I was going into deciding what I was going to study at university. So back then we went in to see a careers counsellor, and I said, I want to do and study social work. And she just sat there and said, no, you can't do that. And I said, oh, but that's all I want to do. And she said, no, there's no money in that. You need to choose again. And I was like, oh. And so there was nothing I wanted to choose again. So I was the only one out of my group of friends that didn't go to university because of what I wanted to study. I was told that I couldn't or I shouldn't, and not to. So my parents were so disappointed and said to my friends, oh, can you check on Sally? Is she okay? Like, she's not going to university. They were so concerned. And so instead I worked and traveled the world. I backpacked around the world for a year by myself. I did so many different jobs and experiences. And then after I came back from this big world trip, that was quite significant and life-changing. And I came back when I was 24 and I still wanted to study social work. So I studied social work. So literally nearly a decade after, I had been deterred by one person that I really let influence me rather than listen to what was really calling me and what my passion was. I dove into study and social work and international development. And the reason when I was 16 that I wanted to study social work was I just had this deep yearning and passion to help people in developing countries. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't have any idea, but I just knew I want to help people in developing countries. So jump to 25 to 27, I'm studying at university, and then dove into helping people in social work and counselling and working in all different non-government organisations throughout all of my 20s. And then I burnt out because I didn't have any idea about self-care and how to really be able to manage supporting others and then be able to support myself, not to then take it all on and burn out. And I so still had that deep desire to support people and work overseas. And on this one day on the train, I grew up in Melbourne, so on the train coming home one day, there was a tiny ad in a newspaper, literally the size of a 20-cent piece, that offered a 3-month kind of exchange of travel, food and accommodation for teaching adults English in Cambodia. And I just jumped on it. I was like, yes, this is what I'm doing. I quit my job. I flew over there. I was accepted, obviously, and I did that. And while I was over there, I met this beautiful woman who was teaching the local language in Cambodia, which is called Khmer, because I was over there teaching English, and I thought, oh, I should make an effort to learn the local language. So I went to learn the local language, and this woman was teaching, and she was so beautiful and such a good teacher and so patient and just adorable. And on day 2, she said, oh, this is my last day, I'm leaving. That's it. And I was like, no. And I stayed back after class and I said, you're amazing. Where are you going? What are you doing? Like, I just adored her. And she said, oh, I'm about to start a women's organization with a friend. And she told me about it. And it was exactly the work that I had been doing in Australia. I was working at a women's organization in Melbourne for 5 years. And it was exactly the same work. And I said, oh, do you want me to help you out? And they were like, yeah. So I would teach English in the mornings in Cambodia, and then I would get on my bicycle and ride to the Women's Resource Centre in Cambodia. And I would volunteer and support them. I was training the staff, I was setting up admin, I was helping them with referrals and all of the things to set up this amazing organisation. And then I didn't want to leave. So my English 3-month stint ended, and before I had even got on a plane to fly back to Australia, I had booked myself a one-way ticket from Australia to Cambodia. So I packed up and I moved to Cambodia, and I lived and worked there for 5 years at this women's organisation that was just a chance meeting, and it just felt like my childhood dream at 16 of wanting to work overseas in a developing country was just handed to me on a silver platter. And I just jumped on it and did it and loved it and worked harder than I ever have. And it was just the most amazing experience to be able to support the staff. And it was really about capacity building. I never worked with the beneficiaries or the local Cambodian women themselves. I supported the Cambodian staff to develop their experience and capacity and knowledge. And yeah, it was such an amazing experience that, you know, they got so much from me, but I feel like I got so much from that experience and from them. They're my family now, so it's the best.
That's so amazing. What happened after that?
So my intention when I moved there was to become like redundant, basically, to work myself out of a job. I was committed to supporting the staff, building their capacity. I was always keeping myself in the background. I wasn't the face of the organisation. People thought that I was, and I was always the first to say, no, I didn't start this organisation. But I did a lot of networking and became quite kind of well known, I guess, in the non-government sector in the country. And I still had this strong desire, okay, once I'm not needed anymore, I'm going to step back. So that day came. And the staff were devastated, like, you guys are fine, you don't need me right now. And it was very adorable. They were like, don't leave. Because like I said, we became family. So I kind of migrated to the board of directors, and I still sit on the board of directors of that organisation today. And I came home to Australia. I felt it was time for me to come back to Australia. And I came back and moved up to the Sunshine Coast and started my women's empowerment coaching business, which I've been doing now for the past 3 years, I think, and living the glorious sunshine life.
Amazing. There's so much in that to unwrap. You know, huge things that stand out, like the whole, you having that spirit to then go help other people in developing countries. Incredible. Something I've always wanted to do. So I mean, so much admiration that you've actually gone and done that. Also the burnout, the, you know, taking the leap of faith, doing all those things. What for you, why was it this opportunity? Why was that stood out? Was there anything that you were doing at that time in Melbourne that was like, I'm, I guess, helping people or doing the things I want to do? Or was it completely you weren't and you seen an opportunity and then you just took it?
I was really burning out. And
So
I
was the
was,
burnout more energy?
yeah, like emotional burnout.
Yep.
It kind of feels like when you're in this supporting, giving work, it feels like compassion fatigue, where you just like, I can't. And for someone so compassionate in this work, like you want to give and you want to support.
Yep.
However, if you don't know how to then refuel your tank, then you're going to burn out. Like that's just, if you don't put petrol in your car, you can't go anywhere. Like that's just how it works.
Yep.
And I hadn't really been taught that. How to refuel my own tank. So I was feeling burnt out and I was wanting to do more. Like I was definitely helping people in Australia, and the organisation I worked for was the largest women's organisation in Victoria, and it was incredible. I worked my way up over 5 years in all different roles. So there was no doubt that I wasn't helping people. I just still had that, you know, burning desire in me to go overseas. And I guess from that time where I was kind of deterred by the careers counsellor when I was 17, I just trusted. Like everyone said, oh, maybe there'll be something else. And I knew there wasn't. And I was like, okay, well, just, if I can't do that, I won't do that. So that knowing, that feeling I was already familiar with. So when this opportunity for Cambodia came up, I was like, yes, this is my opportunity. Like I know what passion feels like. I know what felt right for me, even though I was deterred when I was a kid. I was literally a kid. So it is understandable why I was deterred. I just decided that I want to trust that from now on and really follow that and live the dream that I'd always wanted to live.
I love that. And it shows that, you know, if you've really got that burning desire and passion to do something, you can find a way to make that happen, even if your careers advisor says, don't do that.
Yeah, and I had so many people, like I literally sold everything I owned to move to Cambodia, like every single thing, my car, everything in my apartment. There was one thing that didn't sell, which is a lamp I was trying to sell for $20. Like that's the only thing that didn't sell, which is still hilarious. And I packed up my life and moved, and people were like, wow, I wish I could do what you're doing. And I'm like, you can, you just decide and you do it. If it really matters to you, like we can do anything, you know, and it just seems a little bit scary, or what's going to happen, or people, that was the kind of energy that I felt people felt as to why they couldn't do that for themselves. But I just trusted, and I just, you know, I wasn't paid, I was volunteering. So I used all of that money that I had, my life savings and everything that I owned, and volunteered living off my life savings. And then that ran out, and then people would sponsor me, like just random people would send me $500 and that would get me through a month. Then I received government support from the Australian government. Like I just found a way out of no way for 5 years. And only in the last year was I paid by that organisation, because we built ourselves up where then they were able to pay me. Yeah, but I just made it happen.
Yeah, and that's so inspiring. And I love that because it shows that you did something. I was just having a conversation with a friend before about this, was people are so afraid to volunteer their time, and they go, well, I don't have time to volunteer. I need to be making money. And it's like, well, if you don't have time to volunteer, you don't have time to make money either. Look what you were able to do. There was no monetary gain from this. You just did it because you were passionate about it, which is so freaking awesome. And it's similar to, I can relate back to things in my life. There's so many times where I've either volunteered or helped out a friend or helped out a business, or even with myself, like the podcast. I did it all for love. I then bought a van to then travel Australia. Didn't get quite up to you, otherwise we would have been in person doing this. And that was all out of love. Like it was never, you know, I need to make this much money from it. It was like, I love doing this and I'm going to do it. And from that, it shows that like 100% there'll be two sides of people. There'd be the people that are like, amazing, I wish I could do that, I hope you have the best time. Then there's people who are going, Sally, what are you doing? You're selling everything to go volunteer.
Yeah. And that was more the energy that I was getting, especially from my family. They were like, what are you going to do? Like, you need to be setting yourself up. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. You have to support me. Like, I'm not thinking about my financial gain or my financial losses. It's just, this is what I deeply, deeply want to do. And I'd been volunteering since I was 18, since I got my license. Even though I wasn't studying social work, I was working and doing all the things, but I was driving up to the city because I lived on the beach in Melbourne, and I was driving up to the city every week, volunteering in soup vans, in different organisations, like anywhere I could give, I was giving, just because I wanted to, not for any glory or financial gain or anything like that, obviously. It's just something that I'm here to do, and that just sets my soul on fire.
Love that. And something that is inspiring me now, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I've got so many friends that run either charities or foundations or volunteer groups, and I'm like, why haven't I volunteered yet, Carlo?
Yeah.
I need to fill that cup now. But I guess there is a lot of stuff that I do. I do free calls and stuff with people, like deep dives, and that's, I guess, my way from home of doing it. But it just shows that there's so many ways that you can give, even when we're in isolation, but even when we're not, that in so many ways that it doesn't have to be, I guess you weren't doing it full time, but you can always do something.
Yeah. I mean, when I was living in Australia, I was just doing it once a week here and there. But obviously in Cambodia, I was doing it full time, but that was my choice. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It's just giving back is what we're here to do, I believe.
Yeah. Why was it such a passion and burning desire of yours to help people?
I don't really know. It's just been something within me since I was a teenager. And I just really deeply care about people, and I love people and humanity, and I just want to be a part of supporting people to live happily and abundantly in all areas. And I'm not even talking about financial, because when I was young, I just wanted people to like feel happy and joyous and, just abundant in life.
What inspired you to step then into, I want to go overseas?
I'd always had this like wanderlust for travel, and then I had already backpacked around the world by myself for a year at 23, which everybody thought was crazy. And my parents were terrified. They were like, okay, this is what she does. And I'd already, traveled to Nepal and lived in a monastery studying Buddhism. Like, anytime I can travel, I will just go somewhere and explore. And I don't really have a fear of what it could be, and planning and researching and all of these things. Like, I've been in some crazy situations because I haven't maybe researched where I could have. But I'm here
to
to
fun of discovery.
So it's fine. It really is. But yeah, I just love other cultures. I love other people. I love getting to know people. I love hearing people's stories and just experiencing something other than what we already know, basically. Like, I had a fine childhood and upbringing, but it was just simple, I guess. And I somewhere, I was planted a seed of exploring and traveling and culture.
And stepping outside of the box and following your dream.
Yeah, I definitely have always done things outside of the box.
I can relate. Very, very non-typical life from us, or path after school, but that's the fun of it. I want to go back to, you were talking about burnout and you talked about compassion fatigue. It comes from, you were saying it comes from us giving so much, being really, really compassionate, which is, again, admirable. It's great. You want to be compassionate. When did you notice that it started to become, I guess, a burnout and a problem? And then how did you go about fixing that? I definitely know the feeling of, I'm a mentor and a coach, and, I love to give my time and speak to people, but I've limited myself to 3 calls a day max. If I do any more, I feel it. I didn't know it was
Yeah.
compassion fatigue. I was just like, my energy is zapped.
And
So
it can be compassion fatigue. It's not always compassion fatigue. It can just be like, I have nothing left to give, like I'm empty. So I burnt out once in Australia, and I actually burnt out twice in Cambodia when I was working at the Women's Resource Centre, because I hadn't learned how to refuel my tank, how to fill my cup, how to practice self-care. Like that wasn't a word in my vocabulary. So I literally, when I was there, I was so passionate and I was so committed to the work. I literally worked 7 days a week for pretty much the whole 5 years. Even when I took a holiday, I was on my email. Like I took 1 month off when I literally was like, I can't do this. I need to just switch off for a month. And that was a little bit of a wake up call. But it wasn't until that was the first time I burnt out in Cambodia. And the second time I was just completely depleted, literally lying on the couch, couldn't move, like wondering what I was going to do, what I was meant to do, why this was happening. And that was also when I had finished up work with the Women's Resource Centre. So I felt like I wasn't living my passion as well, like I wasn't doing that work. So that contributed. However, I was completely wiped. And I came back to Australia, moved back, and I actually had a really severe car crash with me and my best friend, and how we survived that, like all of the emergency services that came were just shocked that we actually survived that car crash. And that was a massive wake-up call. It's like, Sally, you can't live like this. You can't just give and give and give. Like life is meant to be for enjoying completely, not just doing something that feels really good, but actually enjoying it at the same time, because I think they're actually two different things, and merging those together. So from that day, of that car crash, I decided that I was going to put myself first over everything, anything and everything, even my business that I knew I was going to start. I decided that self-care would come first. And I just started learning about self-care and what that looked like, and different energies, like you were talking about feminine energy and masculine energy. And I learned I had really been pushing and living so heavily in the masculine energy, and that was burning me out. How can I live and work and be in the feminine energy and still do the things that I wanted to do and feel the things that I wanted to feel and not burn out? So literally since I've been back in Australia for the last 3.5 years or something, that's been my practice. And every day I come first over business. When people say, do all these things for your business, I'm like, no, if I am my business. So if I'm not good, then it doesn't matter what I'm working on in my business. So that's how. 3 burnouts. I don't recommend it, but that's how.
And I guess it's that experience of trial and error. Like you did it, and then you're like, no, I'll do this again. And then you did it again, and then you did it again. And then it's like, okay, this obviously isn't working. I need to adapt. And everyone obviously is going to be at a different point in their life. How can we blend both masculine and feminine? Because it's something we spoke about this. We have them both. It's not masculines for men and feminines for females, probably more predominant in different people in different genders. But how can we utilize both of these energies to live the best day or best life?
Yeah, and as you said, it is important to realize that we each have feminine and masculine energies. So predominantly men will feel more at home in their masculine, and then likewise more women will feel more at home, and that would be their essence being feminine. However, in this world, in this day and age, we're doing and achieving and working and striving, and that requires masculine. It's goal orientated, it's directive, it's achieving, it's working towards something and doing. It's an outward energy, which is great to get things done, to all of those things. And we need to equally give back, which is the feminine, which is the receiving energy. And so it's a shift for a lot of people, male or female, to be able to see the value, because the world has put emphasis on the giving. you know, like I was praised for going to Cambodia, for giving my life up and giving and giving and giving. And I was like, yeah, but this is for me as well. Like, this feels good. Like, I'm actually receiving a lot from this. So when people praised me or praise people who were doing things that seem like the do-gooder things, it's like, yeah, but we're also receiving something from it as well. It's just funny. So it really is about realizing that without giving back to ourselves, you can't keep giving and achieving and doing. And it really is a perspective shift that takes time, 100%, because I work with so many women who it's just, they're at the bottom of their priorities list. It's like, oh, I'll do it when all these things get done. And whoever gets all those things done? No one, ever. So you never get to that Sally or Carlo at the bottom of the list, you know? And so my drastic shift of putting me at the top really like shifted everything. Like, since then, my life has been so different in how I show up, how I feel, how I be, how I present, how I interact, because I don't feel depleted. I don't allow myself to get depleted, or if I do, then I know exactly what to do to fill myself back up. And it just, it really is something that seems counterproductive. And that is why I think so many people resist it, because we can just keep going. Like, I lived in that masculine energy for many years, and most people do. However, it's not like super, super, super joyful. And it's like, why don't we want to be super, super, super joyful? It gets to be easier, and it gets to be so fun and enjoyable. And that's where I think we kind of miss the mark, because we just want to achieve and tick boxes and celebrate our wins and then move on to the next without really experiencing and feeling, which is, again, that feminine energy.
And I think that there's so many ways that we can, I guess, compare and say the pros of this, the pros of this, and if you're too far down this way, I guess the cons or the negative effects of both. I feel like it's very interesting you say that, and when we do step back, and when I step back and look at that, it's like the masculine was praised of like the hustle, the grind, all of that, and for people that without noticing, they could be doing things they don't even like or that feel good to them, stressing themselves out, putting so much pressure, which then leads to obviously other diseases, illnesses, and problems within the body of just got to do. And I was one of those people. I used to always just do, because it was like, that's what again, I was taught you're supposed to do this as an entrepreneur, or as a business owner, or as a successful person, you have to be doing. And in terms of being and feeling and listening was not happening. And what do you think was happening? What was the downside of, what was happening? I was always stressed out. I wasn't sleeping well. I was losing a lot of weight, and I was so stressed out. I would always be grinding my teeth and so much tension in my body. And I'd have different health problems, and I'd have times where I'd have migraines, and I wouldn't be filling, again, you were saying, filling my cup first. You're allowed to do. This is the thing that I want people to understand. You're allowed to do. Like, Sally does things that she loves, and she's damn good at it, and she probably works hard at it because she loves it. I do things that I love, and I did a post the other day about I love the grind to throw people off, and then I obviously explained it down lower. But it's like, I love doing all these things, but I also know how to look after myself as well, from experience of not so much burning out, but I guess feeling the negative effects. So you can do things, but if you don't have that balance, you're really going to find a lot of problems. And you're not being, one thing with being, I guess for me, I've seen with the feminine is being present, is actually being in your body, not always in the next place. And when you can do that, you're experiencing a better life.
Exactly, because you're in the experience, because the only experience is now. And if we're ahead thinking about the next goal and the next task and the next thing that we get to achieve and complete and do, we don't get to relish in the now, which is what so many people miss. Even when they get to that next marker and they tick the box, they're like, okay, next. And they don't even take a moment to really be in that moment of celebrating themselves or whatever it was that they achieved. But that is why self-care is so important, because it then enables you to keep doing what you love to do. Like, that's the thing that people think, I don't have time for that. Well, do you have time for burnout? Do you have time for feeling shitty all the time and then ending up resenting people or resenting your work, which isn't really your truth? It's more just that fatigue and burnout. And like you said, the way that I run my business and my life is through, like, I'm innately very feminine. And through, yes, very obvious.
Well, we work so well together.
And so it is about listening to my intuition and connecting to myself. Like, that is what guides me in my life and me in my business. I've tried before, okay, let's try and get strategic and nut things out of what look good and what makes sense on paper. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't mean that that's not a good plan for other people. It just, for me, it does not work. I need to feel aligned with something. It needs to feel aligned, not just look like this is going to be sustainable or smart financially, for example. You know, it's about that feeling, and that guides me through life. Example, like moving to Cambodia and all of the things that I've done, listening to me, myself, my truth, my intuition. That's how I live, and that's what works.
Yeah. Would you say that your feminine is more, or feminine energy is more intuitive, and then masculine energy is more ego-based?
I wouldn't say ego. I'd say more like mind-based, like it's thought and logic. Logic, that would be the word. Yeah. So strategic, logical thinking. So you can think about the masculine energy kind of being from the neck up in the head, and what you're thinking and what makes sense and what we want to do and thoughts and all of those things. And then the feminine really resides in the body, like you were saying. It's the intuition lies in the body as well. So it's those feeling senses that are in the body.
Yeah. And I think that's powerful to realize that. And I think one of the ways we explained it when we were on stage last year was the feminine energy is, it's like our sexual parts. It's like the masculine is outwards and the feminine is inwards. So whatever's giving to you is, you know, filling your cup with, it's the feminine energy, and whatever's going outwards is masculine, is doing.
Exactly. That's it. Receiving feminine and then outward penetrating masculine, going that way.
Yeah. What can we do if we notice that we're either two in our head or two in our body? What's the middle point of that? Or how can we balance when we're too far in one side?
Yeah. Well, I think we also talked about that on stage where I said, I don't really believe in balance.
Blend.
However, blend, that's it. However, it can be easy to get too in one energy where it doesn't feel useful, like too much in the masculine, you're just going, burning out, feeling exhausted, or too in the feminine where you're just like floating around, not actually doing anything. You're just like la 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 la, which can feel super fun and beautiful, but not useful if you're trying to work on something. So I explain the masculine and the feminine as, so like the masculine is like the container and the structure that holds space for the feminine to flow within. So when we create this masculine structure for ourselves, which could be, I'm going to get up and have 3 hours of self-care in the morning where I just do what feels good for myself, and that's a structure. And once that's completed, so to speak, like I've got from, 6 till 9, and then from 9 I move into work, and then I've got that kind of structure container for a workflow, whatever that may be. And again, that doesn't have to be, well, it can be like 9 a.m, 9:30, all of the things, or it can be, I'm going to have options that I need to work on or want to work on, and then choose what feels right. So it really is about having that structure. That's not too tight. If it's too tight, then it's going to feel like too masculine. So there's no one way or one size fits all. It really is about what's going to work for you. So it's playing with that and working out how to blend them so it comes together beautifully.
Amazing. I love that so much. Would you say you're living your purpose?
Well, I believe our purpose is to live this human experience and have a joyful life, living it joyfully. and supporting others and giving to others as we can, as well as ourselves, of course. But that's what I believe our purpose is to live this human life. I don't see purpose as a job or a business or something like that. I feel like that's to do with our passions, and we live our purpose through our passions. So we're living what feels good and what excites us and what makes us feel good through the passions, and they can change throughout life. For example, for me, it had been working with women in Cambodia, and now it's still working with women. That's still my passion. It just looks different now. And so, but I've been living and enjoying life and supporting myself and other people and just living a great life the whole time. So I think that is our purpose. So, yeah.
So would you say you're living your purpose?
I am definitely living my purpose.
And how can, I guess, well, you did explain. I was going to say, how can people live in their purpose or find their purpose? But as you just explained, that it's doing those things.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's also our purpose, is to live the human experience and to grow and evolve throughout that, whatever that looks like. And that can be through living our passions. But I think finding our passions is about finding what and following what lights us up and what excites us, is what brings us joy, like following the joy. We're not really taught that. We're taught to, okay,
Follow
well,
the money.
study as a doctor, that makes sense. I can make the money. That's what my family does, whatever it may be. But if that's not your joy, you're not going to feel joyful every day. And that's how I feel every day. And I think that's how we all get to feel every day.
And what an amazing thing, like if you were like actually saying to someone, would you rather have, this much money or, and probably not feel that good, or feel joy, but also be able to make money? And because it's just a byproduct of the things that we do. We're going to, we want to feel good. We want to feel joy. And I think that's such a cool way of explaining it, is that, your passions are going to be the way you live out your purpose. And your passions are allowed to change, and they'll probably will, and they'll evolve over time. But you find joy and find the fun in those things, and you will then reap the benefits of this amazing life.
Exactly, 100%.
What is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and how is that the best thing that has ever happened to you?
I don't really know what the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I find this question hard because I really find this hard because everything I can see the benefit from and how I've grown and evolved.
What was the most challenging at the time?
I mean, there's a few things that come to mind. And the one that's sticking out at the moment is the death of of a friend when I was, I think, maybe 16. And he was a boyfriend at the time. And yeah, I mean, that was very challenging because he was my best friend and my boyfriend, and he died of a drug overdose, and he was just such a beautiful person that I just, it was the hardest thing at the time because I was obviously 16, and I've lost very important people in my life since then, of course, as well. But that being maybe one of the first major deaths apart from grandparents when I was younger, I really made a commitment then to myself. He cared and loved me so much and saw so much good in me. And he was a drug addict, and I saw the good in him, and I saw him past all of that, beyond being addicted to a drug. And he always would look out for me and look after me. And he always said, "Sally, I never ever want you to touch any drugs. Promise me that you'll never do that." And he had all these dreams and ambitions. And so while that was the hardest, really challenging for me at the time, since I made that commitment to him, never to touch any illicit drug, and I never ever have, because I was so committed to that. And I didn't really want to either, to be honest. But like he wanted to help people, and I just knew that me being able to help people would also be kind of living the life that he didn't get to live. Like he was so committed to getting through his addiction and working to support people who are addicted to drugs and all of these beautiful, beautiful things. So yeah, it's interesting. I've had so many things happen, but that's what's coming to me right now.
Yeah. And what a powerful thing. Like, it's never nice to experience things like that, or death. But someone so close, and then how that's impacted you, and then shown you that, hey, you don't need these things in life. And I guess what a beautiful way to remember someone is to be like, well, I'm going to live this life and make the most of it. And that's the unfortunate thing when I've had friends or friends of friends that have passed. It's like, man, they had so much within them, so much goodness, so much potential. And for me, it's like, that's why I wake up and I'm, as soon as I put 2 feet on the ground, I'm like, man, or even just wake up and open my eyes, I'm like, man, I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I celebrate, I feel like I celebrate him a lot. Like I think about him a lot still, it's like 20 something years later. Yeah, it's just beautiful. So.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
The best advice is from my father, and that was to ask questions. He always said, just ask questions. If you don't know, if you're not sure about something, just ask a question. And I am definitely that person that asks a lot of questions, even when it comes to like ordering at a restaurant and asking questions about every menu item and just making everything very difficult. Whenever I go to a restaurant and I just say, I will have that without asking a question, like I truly celebrate. It's like, wow, normally I'm asking so many things, which is just funny to me. But just in life in general, like question things. Like I don't take things at face value. If something doesn't make sense to me, I'm not afraid to ask for more information, to ask for that to be explained. Even in like doctors' rooms, when like I've been in doctors' rooms many times with certain health challenges that I've experienced, that I've believed that I manifested, and like women's reproductive health challenges, which when I was sitting opposite a male gynecologist could feel really intimidating for many women not to ask questions, just to be like, okay, yep, okay, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about, my vagina with you or something like that, that many people feel uncomfortable with. But I am the one that's going to say, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain it? And when you're coming from like asking those questions confidently and not accepting, you don't understand and it's too complicated. Like I am asking the question for you to explain it to me and unpack it. So then I would be the one that was receiving diagrams, and that the doctor would sit longer with me to explain and really put it in layman's terms so I could understand what was going on with my body, for example. And I just think that's so important, to be able to use our voice and ask questions, speak our truth, and not be afraid. Like that to me is the number one thing that I always think when someone says, what's the one thing that your parents taught you? Like I think of that.
Mm-hmm. And the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask others and yourself. So powerful. And question exactly, like question. And for me recently, it's like question why we're brought up with the certain things we've been told, and question what's happening right now in the world. Question why people act certain ways. Question why you respond certain ways. Like, oh man, there's so many questions, and if you want the answers, and you got to ask a question.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like not being afraid, because I think so many people are too afraid to ask questions because they don't want to seem either annoying or are wasting somebody's time, or even stupid that they don't know the answer, or just, oh no, I better not, like, shying away from like being in the spotlight. But if we want to be able to make informed decisions, then we have to have information. And I'm all about, like, I've worked in women's empowerment, women's advocacy and women's rights for 15 years. And it's all about enabling women to make informed decisions. And so we need to be educated and we need to have information to be able to do that. So I'm not going to be forced into anything that doesn't align with me or make complete sense and have my full understanding. Like, it's just not something that I will ever do. I will never feel pressured into that. And I think it's something that is, like, so many women lack, that kind of confidence and almost like non-negotiable within themselves, to stand for themselves in that way. Like, an example is coming to me right now, which I'll share. Before I studied social work, I was modelling from 18 to 23, and that's how I saved up all the money to travel around the world. And I was quite the I realised I was a feminist when I was modelling, because I was asked to do jobs that were sexualising me, basically. And I would not know what the job was, so to speak, until you got on set sometimes. So it's like, oh, there's a job for advertising an armchair. This was one. And I was in Japan, working in Japan at the time. I was like, okay, cool. I went there and I couldn't really understand how I would be supporting to advertise an armchair, but, you know, you get the job, you go. And it was meant to be me bending over the armchair. So then basically my ass is at the camera and the armchair is in the background and I'm in the foreground. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And they were like, I beg your pardon? You're here, you're a model, you do the job. And I said, no. And I didn't really stick around very long at that agency. They weren't very impressed with me. That just wasn't, you know, and it's a lot of money. I turned down so many jobs for so much money and a potential, like, really successful career, because I chose not to become sexualized in that industry. And that was because that didn't align with me, and I used my voice and I spoke up. And, like, yeah, I'm just so grateful that I had that and I have that within me.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the work you do now is based around that, giving women, well, empowerment, women's empowerment is giving them back that confidence, that voice to ask questions, but also to speak their truth and be aligned with their values, so that they know that, you know, this is what I believe in and I'm not going to alter based on somebody else.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like, 100%. And we've got to get to know ourselves, to know what our truth is, to know what our values are, to know what our non-negotiables are, to know what we stand for. Like, a lot of people are like, who are you? And they don't know the answer. Like, oh, well, I'm a mum or I'm a doctor. And it's like, no, who are you? Like, unless we know ourselves, it's very hard to feel confident, comfortable, happy, on purpose, aligned, all of these things. We've got to get to know ourselves and then trust ourselves and then act from that space.
Powerful. What advice would you give your 16-year-old self?
To trust myself, and not allow, just not to be influenced. Like I said, I was influenced when I was 17. So I would, and I don't regret that, because everything's obviously worked out perfectly. However, the advice would be just to trust, just seriously trust yourself and know that you've got this, that I've got this.
Yeah. Would the 16-year-old Sally listen?
Probably not, because she was pretty stubborn and rebellious. In all the best ways, of course. But yeah, possibly not.
What does it mean to be conscious?
I think it's about being aware, and more than just being aware, like, of self, if we're talking about being conscious of self, but being aware of self and then being willing to do something with that awareness, to shift something, to speak about something, to act on something, to admit something that maybe would be like, oh, I could just maybe get away with this and backpedal a little bit. But feeling our truth and then speaking that is conscious to me.
I love that description. Everyone's got such a different way of speaking into that, and I love it because I'm like cultivating all conscious descriptions. That's why when the book comes out, it's like, what is consciousness? It's like all these things, and people are like, I thought it was just one thing. I thought it was just to be awake, and it's like, yeah, it is, but to a lot of people, it's such a different perspective, and that's why I love asking it and hearing everyone's answers. What is the impact you want to have on people, the community, and the world?
I want to have people feel joyful and seen and loved and valued and supported and appreciated. I really like, that's the kind of individual micro level, I guess, of interactions with people that I would hope that I impacted in that way. And yeah, I guess if you're thinking about what people would speak about you at your funeral, is that they, morbid maybe, that, you know, that I brought joy, that I brought their life joy, and to realize that they have that joy in themselves. You know, it's not like, I need Sally for that. I don't care to have this kind of prestigious look or people looking at me in a certain way. It's just to realize what they have within themselves, you know, like what we see in others is what we have in ourselves. And then, yeah, just supporting and doing everything I can to support others maybe less fortunate, or that I have the capacity to help in any way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Well, I guess if there's women listening, like I work with women as we spoke about, and if any of this has resonated with you or touched you, or you think, oh wow, like I'd love to do something like that, or I wish I had more confidence, or anything like that, just to really believe and trust and know that everything is already inside of you, and you have all of what you need to live the life of your dreams and develop into aligned and feeling like they deeply know themselves. And that obviously if you need support along the way, then I'm here. But it's really more than that. It's just like what you see in others, like I said, is a reflection of what is within you. So just to remember that, I think that's so important. And especially for women, when we're looking at other women, the tendency is to compare and feel jealousy. But to flip that and think, oh wow, I love that in her. Like, look at that. Maybe I have that. Either you have that, or it's something that you desire and that you can have. Because there's nothing that we can dream or think or desire that isn't meant for us.
And so empowering as well to know that. And then I guess my next question is, how can everyone find you? And if there is women out there that want to work with you and get in touch with all these, with empowerment, to unlock these things within themselves and to work with someone amazing like yourself, how can they find you, and what programs do you have available?
Well, the easiest way is Instagram, and I'm just Sally Jane Douglas, which I'm sure you'll share. That's the easiest way. I'm Sally Jane Douglas everywhere, Facebook, website, everything. So that is an easy way to get in contact with me. I'm very active on Instagram. And I'm about to launch a really exciting program at the end of May called Empower Her, which is all about exactly what we've been talking about, developing that inner power, that inner trust, that inner knowing, and living a really joyful, purposeful, empowered life for ourselves without being fearful, or without second guessing ourselves, or having that self-doubt, or just living unapologetically for ourselves, with ourselves, our community, all the things.
Amazing. So you're taking intake for that program?
It will be in about a week. Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. So by the time this is up, it should be already in intake stages and probably close to the end of May. So perfect timing. And is it spelt Empower Her?
Yeah. So it's basically got an H in it. So Empower
Nice.
Her. So yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Well, I want to wrap this up by acknowledging thanking you for coming on and your time, your wisdom, your sharing your journey so vulnerably and so real and being so honest with me. I admire you for the human that you are, because ever since I met you, there was always such a nice and lovely connection. I feel like you're the most nicest person I've ever met. You're always just so loving and caring and always up for a chat and to talk and to help. And I guess that compassionate side shows in your story, where you are willing to do that from a place of love. It's not from a place of I want to get all this fame and attention, blah, blah, blah. It's I'm doing this for love, and that's what drives me. And I admire that so much about you, the work that you have done volunteering for other people, but also the work that you do that's so important for women right now. And yeah, I think you're an incredible human, and I'm so grateful that we met and we got to share the stage together. That was also awesome. But that we're friends and that we're connecting now and collaborating on things now, because it's special when you meet people that impact your life in such a, I guess, a small way but a big way, and that can be from just giving and being loving and compassionate. So thank you.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. And I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, that is how I live my life. And I think it's, like you said, like, how do you want to impact people? Like, that's exactly it. Exactly how I be is how I want to impact people. And that's how I feel as well. So it's like the give and receive. It's that beautiful union. And I also want to thank you for having me on the podcast and everything that you do to support people. Like, this is an incredible platform and resource, and you are just an incredible human, and so grateful for you in my life as well. And I love our chats and diving into all of the things. It's the best.
You're so welcome, and thank you. I feel that, and I definitely know that, yeah, I can't wait till we catch up in real life again, and then all the conversations, because we do go deep, and it's great to have friends like that you can, we've met once, but we have share such a close connection and all the things, which is fun. So thank you so much, and until next time, everyone, peace.
Thank you.